Hey, welcome everybody. This is the fifth episode of the Bobby Bowen Show, and we've kind of covered a lot of areas in the music business. And we kind of started out with my story, and then talked to Kent Humphrey. He's a great singer, and then we went to a musician, Joe Cook, that used to be in the band I was with, Mid South. And then we started. We went with the guy that makes us all sound good when we go to a studio and record. Rick Sandage is a good friend of mine, been a friend of mine for about 20 years, telling us, about how to record and all the experience. I had no idea he's recorded so many people. I had no idea. The guy's been around. But now we're working our way back around to old Gene Reasoner, a good friend of mine. I think we've known each other about 30 years, Gene.
Long time.
Long time. And Gene's been around the block a time or two. He's been in country music, bluegrass, Christian country, Southern gospel. He's about done it all. I think the only thing you hadn't done, Gene, was heavy metal and rap. I think that's the only two things I hadn't heard you try.
I'm too old for that.
Me too. So, Gene, I want you to go way back. I've been having everybody go back to and talk about their childhood, where they were born. What if you want to tell them what year, then they can figure out the math and figure out how old you are, and just kind of go from what were your influences? How'd you get started in the music business? Just kind of go from there.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Bobby. I think this is cool. I feel like I've made the big time now. I'm on the
Man,
Bobby
yeah.
Bowen Show.
Yeah, you've made it, man. This is like the Ralph Emery Show.
Well, you never know. This is the beginning.
Could be. I don't know. Hope so.
I think it's a great thing you're doing here.
I
was born in October of 1948.
I was born in October too, but not 1948.
I was born on Alan Jackson's birthday, Reba Rambo's birthday, Kenny Henson's birthday, Earl Thomas Conley's birthday.
Wow.
I shared birthdays with a lot of cool people.
And what day is that now?
October 17th.
17th.
1948.
Yeah. I was born on the 28th of October.
Oh, all right.
63.
Yeah. There's a lot of musicians born in October. I don't know how come that is. But
it's just musician month, I guess.
I was born in Appleton City, Missouri, about 100 miles south of Kansas City. And my father was a young preacher when I was born, and he began to pastor little churches. And so we lived in Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and all over the place. And by the time I was in first grade, we were back in the Springfield, Missouri area. And that's about the time that my mom began to take me to concerts. And as far back as I can remember, I loved music, and of course raised in church, preacher's kid, and that's all I've ever known really was church. And
do you remember? Do you remember who you went to see in those concerts?
I do. Well, the first concert she took me to, I was too little to remember it.
Yeah,
I wasn't even a year old when we went to see the Blackwoods and the Statesmen.
Wow.
At the Shrine Mosque in Springfield, Missouri. And but by the time I was in the first grade, I started, that's about how far back my memories go. And we were going to see all the major quartets that came through, and I loved them all. That's my mom bought records, and we had a little hi-fi, and I spent hours in front of the hi-fi listening to records and trying to figure out the harmony parts, and and so I was raised on the Blackwoods and the Statesmen and the Spear family. And by the time I was, 9 or 10 years old, we were living in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Dad pastored a little church there. And at the Municipal Auditorium in Tulsa, there used to be a package that came through, and the Oak Ridge Quartet was on that package. And that's back when Smitty Gatlin was still singing with them. And man, I just fell in love with the Oak Ridge Quartet, and I loved Tommy Fairchild's piano play, and I loved the way he played rhythm. And so I tried to figure all that out, and I was taking accordion lessons. I took accordion lessons for 7 years, but I always wanted to play the piano and the guitar. So on the side, I was trying to learn how to play the piano, and the accordion lessons helped with that. But I always played by ear. I didn't practice my lessons very well.
Yeah.
I was always trying to figure it out by myself. But I loved the Oak Ridge Boys, and then as they progressed, we moved to California. Dad took a church out there, and we'd go to San Jose to see the quartets, and we'd also we'd drive over 300 miles south to Los Angeles to the Long Beach Auditorium and see the quartets down there. Matter of fact, interesting story, we were there the night the Blackwoods recorded their famous live album where J.D. Sumner was going down to hit the real low note and the baby cried out loud.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
and he stopped and said, "Bless its heart."
Was that you that cried?
That wasn't me. I was in junior high school, but we were there that night when that record was recorded.
Wow, that's something, man.
Which is really cool. But anyway,
cool.
That's the musical influences I had. But about that time when I was in junior high school, I got a transistor radio for Christmas one year, and probably a lot of the people that will see this may not know what a transistor radio was, but a lot of people will.
Oh yeah,
people in my generation know what they were. Yep. But it was a great little radio, and I would put that thing under my pillow at night, especially on a Saturday night, because my dad was real strict. He didn't want me listening to worldly music.
Oh yeah.
The only thing I'd listen to was gospel.
Yeah.
But when I got that little radio, I started sneaking around and listening to all kinds of music.
Kind of like what kids do nowadays with their
earbuds,
phones and their iPads. They sneak around at night.
Yeah. But I would put that little radio under my pillow after everybody went to bed, and I could get, on a clear night, I could get WSM.
Yeah.
And listen to Grand Ole Opry. And so, but with doing that, I learned to love country music, and I loved Flatt and Scruggs and Bill Monroe and the Osborne brothers. So I learned to love, bluegrass music.
Yeah.
And that's really how I learned to sing harmony. I got an album by the Osborne brothers one time. The album's called Up This Hill and Down. It's a classic bluegrass album. And I learned to sing harmony by listening to those guys, and also by listening to the Oak Ridge Boys. But so those were the kinds of musical influences that I really had growing up. And they pretty well shaped my musical preferences, as I grew older. And so I was always playing and singing in church. And my whole goal was to be in a group and play piano and sing. And I tell people all the time that God's been so good to me, because a lot of my dreams came true, really, honestly. And
me too, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I feel real fortunate and real blessed that the things that I dreamed about when I was a kid, I got to do a lot of those things.
Yeah.
Maybe not at the level that I was hoping for.
Yeah.
But in a sense, my dream still came true.
Right.
And I remember in 1983 when I got the job playing bass guitar for Grandpa Jones. I wasn't a bass guitar player. I could play acoustic guitar, but
how did you get the job if you weren't a bass player? I mean, how did you get that?
I played acoustic guitar, so I knew I knew the technique of playing a bass guitar. I really never had one in my hands, but I felt like I could do the job. His music was basic and simple. Yeah. And but I got the job, and that fulfilled one of the biggest dreams I had, was to play on the Grand Ole Opry.
Oh man.
And that was my big excitement, getting his
listen
job.
to it when you were just a little kid on a transistor radio to actually playing on the stage.
That's right. And I knew when I got that job, I was going to the Grand Ole Opry with him,
Sure.
And I never forget the first time that I played it. My whole family went down there with me. I never did move to Nashville. Grandpa at that time was working about 60 dates a year, which worked out great for me because we had another business on the side, and it was a great part-time job. He paid really well, and he didn't play clubs at all. Everything he played was concert halls and fairs, and that first performance at the Opry was just like, I'm standing out there and I just can't believe that it's happening,
I bet. Yeah.
And I still remember the feeling. I wasn't so nervous that I couldn't play. I think my performance was pretty good, but I was excited, and it was a dream come true.
The adrenaline was flowing, I'm sure. Yeah.
It was. And then 2 or 3 months later, I was down there doing the Opry with him, and we got finished with a song, and they went to a commercial, and he turned around to me and he said, "Gene, you want to sing one?" And he gave me a solo spot on the Opry, and he did that 5 or 6 times while I was with him those 3 years. And
Now, was that only on the radio then, or were they actually showing it on TV live
a
back
couple times it was on the TNN 30-minute broadcast.
then? Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you
And
did you get a copy of that?
I've got one of them. I wish I had both of
Oh
them.
man.
But anyway, and they're replaying those now on this new network they've got out.
Yeah,
So, and I've seen a couple of them on YouTube. And
I actually saw they show Crook and Chase on there,
yeah.
and it was Mid South's last performance on the Nashville network.
Oh, cool.
I
Yeah.
saw it. Well, somebody told me it was on TV. And
Yeah.
there it
Yeah.
was.
Well, they've played it a couple times when Grandpa was on there while I was with him. So I've been on that. But anyway, so that was a great.
What kind of guy was he? I mean, I met him one time at
Yeah.
Shoney's there in Nashville. He didn't have. I mean, he wasn't in costume.
Right.
So a lot of times you see somebody in costume. If you see them just in regular clothes, you don't recognize them. But I knew it was him. I could
Sure.
recognize his face.
Grandpa
Really
was
nice.
he was a great guy. He was extremely honest.
Uh-huh.
He wouldn't cheat you a dime. He treated me great. He and I really hit it off. He just kind of took me under his wing, and he was really good to me. And but he had he had this side to him that people thought he was kind of gruff and kind of rude sometimes, but he really wasn't. You just had to kind of get acquainted with him.
Yeah.
And he would always sign autographs, and he'd always stop and take pictures with people if they didn't interrupt him while he was doing something else.
Oh.
Like if we were in a restaurant and we were eating and somebody come up to him while he was eating his meal, that aggravated him. But if they'd wait,
I did when I saw him in Shoney's.
Yeah, if they'd wait till he got finished and come over there, he'd be fine, and he'd laugh and cut up. But he was a fine man. He really was. And they asked me and the other two guys that were in the band to be pallbearers at his funeral, and that was an honor. But yeah, he was a good guy. He was a really good guy. I miss him.
So what years was this?
83, 84, and 85.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when did it was a Jubilation that actually started?
Yeah. The last year I was with Grandpa, I don't know. I just started. I got stirred up in my heart that I ought to go back into gospel music, and I wanted to be, ministry but yet be professional, and I didn't really know how I was going to do it, and I got to talking with Bruce Haynes one day. We got together down in Branson. At that time, he was playing on a show in Branson, and I told him what I'd been feeling in my heart, and he said, "Man, that's crazy." He said, "I've been feeling the same thing." And Bruce and I had known each other since he was 14 and I was 24, and we had always felt like we were going to work together at some point, but we didn't know how that was going to happen. And so we got to talking that day, and we said, well, maybe we ought to think about putting a group together. And I said, well, we'd need a tenor singer. And he said, well, I know one that's ready. And I said, who's that? And he told me that Benny Wood, who was singing tenor with the Texans, the show that Bruce was playing for, that they had been talking about it on their bus. Yeah. And they were tired of the Branson thing, and they felt like they needed to get back more towards ministry. Anyway, that's how it all came together. The three of us got together in about a week or two. We met at my church here where I live in Ozark, Missouri, and we sang a couple songs together just to see if we had any kind of a sound. And we felt like we did, and we just felt like it was right, and that we just went for it. Yeah. But we had this thing. We said, if we're going to do this, we're not going to be a weekend group. We're going to be available full time. Yeah. So, so we can go anywhere at any time, which I don't know how much wisdom was in that, in that plan, but because we didn't make hardly any money the first couple of years. Well, we never made good money, but
we didn't either.
but we just did it. We committed to it, and that's what we did.
I was talking to Kent about that. A lot of people, they see you on stage, they see the bus, they see the records, they see your songs on the radio somewhere, and they automatically think, boy, those people they're rolling in the dough. They must be making a killing, but it wasn't the case, was it?
No, it wasn't the case. But like I said, we were committed, and our wives committed to it. They were in agreement, and if they hadn't all been working and had decent jobs, we wouldn't have been able to do it.
Right.
But
Right.
you know, it's a sacrifice to be away from home a lot.
Yeah.
And there were times when we were gone a lot. There were times where we weren't gone, but just a couple of days a week.
Yeah.
You know how it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But anyway, that's how we started. And just within 6 months of the time we started, we added our drummer, J.R. Bradford, and Bob Ashley came on board to play guitar and steel. And we had the 5 original guys then within 6 months. And it really worked well. And we had a great time and got to do a lot of cool things. And I feel like we made some pretty good records. And
you did. It started out as Jubilation.
We started out Jubilation, and
why was the change to White River? What happened there?
When we started, I mean, all we knew was Southern gospel,
right?
Like Mid-South boys.
Oh yeah, sure.
You know, we were Southern gospel. Mm-hmm. I mean, we wore ties and coats, and we were Southern gospel, and we loved it. And but as time went on, especially 2 or 3 years into it, rolling down the road, whether we were still in the van or by the time we got the bus, we found ourselves mostly what we listened to going down the road was country music on the radio.
Yeah.
That's the sound we like. That's the music we love. And, you know, back in the late 80s, country music was exploding.
It was. And
there were so many country stations on the air. Weren't all that many Southern gospel stations.
Right.
So we listened to country music. And we listened to a lot with our Walkmans and our earbuds, you know.
Yeah.
And we got to talking about how, you know, we'd hear a song that we just loved and the sound we liked. We'd say, we wish our music sounded like that, but had our message.
Yeah.
And, you know, Bruce wrote 85-90% of what we did.
Mm-hmm.
And we just got to talking and said, you know, we ought to start writing more of a country style thing. And let's just do it. Let's just, I mean, and it just evolved over a short period of time. And at least I'll just speak for myself. What I really didn't realize at the time was there were some other people out there thinking the same things.
Oh yeah.
You guys were.
Yep.
And I had always followed Southern gospel music, but for some reason, I really wasn't all that familiar with the Dixie Melody Boys.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't know that much about the DMB band.
Right.
I began to find out about it the more we got into it. And I realized, hey, we really weren't the first. Those guys were. The DMB band really were really the forerunner of the whole thing.
I told Ken, I said, a lot of people give Mid-South the credit for starting that Christian country sound, which actually the credit goes to Dixie Melody Boys DMB band.
It really does.
The first ones to actually venture out and do that.
Yeah. And, you know, and it doesn't really matter who started. I'm just glad it got started. But they really were the first. But it's just funny. But I think it illustrates the fact that God was working in the hearts of more than just us or more than just you guys.
Exactly.
He'd already been working on it for a long time.
Yeah.
And preparing things. And as time went on, more people came on board. But it was, you know, making up our minds to commit totally to Christian country music was kind of a big deal because we weren't totally on the Southern gospel circuit as far as the big concerts were concerned.
Right.
But at the same time, we were getting a lot of radio play from Southern gospel. That's the only radio we had. And Southern gospel radio was, you know, fairly strong. And so when we made the commitment to move in the other direction, not because we were trying to cut ourselves off from Southern gospel, it just happened organically, you know.
Yeah.
And some people misunderstood our motive, and we weren't upset with Southern gospel. We didn't dislike it anymore. Right. We still loved it. It was what we grew up on.
Yeah.
I know there was a lot of misunderstanding, and I don't know about you guys, but we even had, after we signed with Bill Traylor, you know, on Homeland, he got some flack over signing us. Yeah. And there was some misunderstanding. And he went to bat for us, got us on the Quartet convention 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
That second year, we had played the Gospel Jubilee. They filmed it down at Opryland, and somebody posted a video of that on Facebook a while back. I was glad to see it. I hadn't seen it in a long time. But there was another show we did on TNN. I think it might have been the Pat Boone show. We did the Pat. I think that was the Pat Boone show. I had been to some Western wear store there in Nashville. And they were having a big sale, and I bought one of them floor length dusters.
Yeah.
And it was bright red, about the color of your shirt. And so we went to film this TV thing, and I dressed in some, I don't even know what I had on. And Trailer came up to me. He said, "You're not going to wear that new duster you bought? That's cool." I said, "No, I wasn't planning to." He said, "Yeah, I want you to." He said, "You got it on the bus?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Go out and get it." So I ran all the way out the bus, got that thing, and I wore it on that TV show.
Yeah.
A couple of the board members of the National Quartet Convention, they saw that show later, and they didn't like it. They got all over Bill Trailer for letting me wear that coat. Well, he almost didn't get us on the Quartet Convention because of that. And they said, I won't mention any names, but this one particular board member said, "Well, he ain't going to be on our stage if he wears that long red coat."
Well, actually, you wore it on the stage because we got up and sang with y'all. "I Like My Gospel Country" that y'all recorded
at the Quartet Convention.
Us and Jeff and Sherry. Yeah,
I forgot about that.
That's where we all got blackballed.
Maybe I did wear it.
You did.
The Quartet Convention. Well, anyway, it was.
We sang that year. I think it was the last year Quartet Convention was in Nashville.
Yeah, it was.
Or maybe one more year,
but I always tell people
it was the last year we were ever invited back.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah, we didn't get to come back either. But I always tell people it's Bill Trailer's fault because he's one made me run out there and get it.
Blame it on Bill.
But see, people misinterpreted a lot of that.
Yeah.
To think that we were trying to make waves, and we weren't. We loved everybody.
Yeah.
And it's funny though, Bobby. A couple years later, I was at Quartet Convention. Well, I don't know. Maybe it was the same. I don't know when it was because maybe they did move it to Louisville because I never did go to Louisville. But the last time I was at the Quartet Convention in Nashville, I was walking around downstairs where they had all the tape tables set up and everything. And here come Maurice Templeton around the corner.
Yeah. And
he walked right up to me, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to say something to him because I had heard that he wasn't happy with.
Yeah.
I walked up to him, and I introduced myself to him, and I said, "I'd like to talk to you for a minute." And he was very nice, very kind. Uh-huh. He said, "Well, sure." And I said, there's just been too much misunderstanding here. And I said, "I just want you to know that even though we've gone a different direction, we still love Southern gospel." I said, "That's what we grew up on. That's our roots, you know." And I said, "We're not against it, and we still love the Quartet Convention." Uh-huh. And we just had a nice little talk, and I just tried to share my heart with him that we weren't trying to cause trouble.
Yeah.
And you know what? He was very nice, and he said, "I really appreciate you talking to me." And he said, "If there's ever anything I can do for you," he said, "you call me."
That's cool, man.
So yeah. I'm glad I had that chance to tell him what I did, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was quite an experience.
It was, yeah. I mean, we did a lot of great things that we would have never done if we would have stayed in that Southern gospel realm. You know, we got to play a lot of places. We got to be on a lot of TV shows.
Right.
We had a song that crossed over to pop radio. I mean, you know, it was exciting stuff.
It was, and another thing that I always thought was cool was here you guys were, and we were kind of the two main ones there for a while. Yeah. And we were both a little bit different styles, which was great because
y'all were more traditional.
We were more the traditional country. Y'all were more Restless Heart, Alabama type.
Right.
And so it was like we was kind of covering all the bases, which I always thought was really, really good thing.
It was. And we did a lot of concerts together. Uh-huh. And a lot of times it was Mid-South, White River, and Jeff and Sherry, which was a great package.
It was a great package.
You had the bluegrass Southern sound.
Yeah.
You had the traditional country sound, and you had
Yeah.
more of the pop or whatever,
Yeah.
edgy country. And it just
Yeah.
worked together. We all
It
loved
really
each
did.
other and just had a ball.
Yeah. It
I
was.
wish we could do that again sometime.
I do too. Well, I know that Jeff has really tried to put that together, and so far it hadn't come together. But I
Well,
hope it does someday.
if Chet Stoltzfus was still around, he went on to be
It
with Jesus a few
it
years
would have
ago.
probably happened.
If he was still around, he would
Yeah.
definitely do it. I guarantee
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. We always love to go up there and work for him.
Oh yeah.
But we better make it happen before too long. Some of us are getting. We're going to be
I'm
too
telling you,
old.
man, especially you.
That's right. No,
So what's been going on with you the past few years? I know y'all done a few reunion things. You and
we
White
try to do
River.
at least one a year, and we have since we started that in 2012, and we've done about 4 cruises together,
Wow.
which has been a lot of fun.
Man, we never got to go do a cruise with Mid South. I'm jealous.
Well, it's uh, the Southern Gospel radio station here in Springfield, Missouri, KWFC. They're 100,000 watt FM. They did 3 cruises, and we were on those with them, helping them with that. And then another local gospel group here did their own cruise, and they wanted us to go with them. And that was the last one we did. And in 2016, I believe it was, or 17 maybe. And so, yeah, we were able to do 4 cruises, and those were really nice. And now we're kind of doing our yearly reunion at Lebanon, Missouri, which is about 50 miles from here. The New Horizons up there, the family group's been singing over 50 years, and they own the Southern Gospel radio station there in Lebanon. And we just do their homecoming every year and kind of consider that our reunion.
Yeah,
And
they've got
a real nice civic center up there, and they have great sound, and
yeah,
it's always a good show, and that's kind of our yearly reunion now.
that's pretty cool. You're doing some solo stuff too, aren't you?
I did quite a bit for a while. I'm not doing a lot anymore, but I'm doing a few dates a year. I tell you, Bobby, I got so burnt out on being on the phone trying to book dates.
Oh yeah.
And I just can't stand to do it anymore. And so I don't hardly ever call anybody and ask for a date. If somebody calls me, then I'll go.
Yeah.
And every now and then they'll call. I'll do 6 or 8 a year,
Yeah.
And I always enjoy it. And if somebody else would book me, I'd probably do a few more dates.
Yeah.
But
I'm the same, man. That's the worst part of trying to book and driving. That's the worst part of it. If I could just somebody could book me and drive me to a place, let me sing,
I know.
I'd be happy.
Yeah. Well, I don't do it for a living. I mean, you're still doing it for a living. That makes it harder. But so that's what I'm doing. I did a new CD a year and a half ago, and I didn't really need it because I'm not doing enough dates. But I wanted to record in Nashville one more time, and I had some things I wanted to record, and then after our daughter died a few years back, I wrote a song with Jerry Salley there in Nashville about that experience, and well, it's more about Bruce Haynes had a dream about her about 4 years after she died, and it was incredible, and that's what the song is really about. And but I went to a songwriter's workshop there in the Nashville area, and it kind of pulled me out of the rut I was in. I hadn't been able to write for several years. It kind of got me jump started again, and I wrote that. So after I got that written, I decided I want to cut in Nashville one more time at least, and so I worked out a deal with Dirk Johnson, and he produced it for me, and he made me a great record. He really did. And
it really is.
So I'm real happy with that. And of course, now I'm wanting to do it again. I don't know if I will or not, but if I can raise the money, I may. But
it's a great CD. We listened to it. We did a Mid-South kind of reunion thing pretty close to where you live back last year.
Oh, Conway, Missouri.
July.
Yeah, I stopped by there.
And you stopped by
to
see
you
us,
guys.
took some pictures with you, and you gave us all CDs, and we listened to it on the way back home to Nashville. And I tell you, it's really good.
Well, Dirk's a genius in the studio. I mean, he knows how to make a country record. He really does.
He does.
He's producing all the Gene Watson stuff right now, and but I'm real happy with it. I mean, it's
it's great.
by far the best thing I ever did.
Where, if somebody wanted to get one of your CDs, where could they find it?
I mean, you can get on my Facebook page and talk to me, and I'll send you one. But it's on iTunes
Okay.
and most of the digital outlets. You can download it.
It's Gene Reasoner. What's the name of the album project?
Daddy, I'm Home.
Daddy, I'm Home. That's the song about your daughter.
Yep, that's the title of the album. Daddy, I'm Home.
That's awesome. So
yeah,
I encourage y'all to do that. Get one of Gene's projects. It's really, really good.
Yeah,
if you like traditional country music with the steel guitars and the nice keyboard, piano, and it's good. I mean, it's top notch.
Well, we had Mike Johnson on steel. He's just as good as it comes. And of course, Dirk played the keys, and Kevin Williams played acoustic, and Kelly Back on the lead. And it's a good record.
Yeah, it's great.
The vocals the only weak link in the chain.
Oh no! Don't say that. Don't say that.
I actually was sick at the time, and if I had a lot of money and I could do it over, I'd do my vocals over. But most people probably can't tell it, but I can hear it when I listen to it. It's my voice wasn't 100% because I was really having some respiratory problems. But
I just thought it's because you're getting old. That's what I
thought. Well, that's an issue too.
No, man, I'm just kidding you. It was really good. It's really good.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Gene, thank you so much for doing this.
Hey, man, I enjoyed it. I hope I didn't talk too much, but
no. Oh yeah, one more thing before we get off. I want you think of a funny, crazy story that happened on the road. I mean, it don't have to be with White River. It can be with Grandpa. Whatever. Just tell somebody a good funny story, road story.
Well, there was funny things that happened to me all through the years, but one time when I was with Grandpa Jones, he traveled. Grandpa never did own a bus. He always traveled in campers or motorhomes. He was a little bit tight, and he just didn't ever want to spend the money to buy a bus. But when I went with him, he had just bought a brand new Holiday Rambler motorhome. It was a nice motorhome in 1983, and but there for a while we got to breaking fan belts on that thing, and I guess one of the pulleys on it had gotten bent or something, and we'd go 500 or 600 miles and the fan belt would break. And then when we'd get back to Nashville, well, he'd mess around, wouldn't get it put in the shop. And so every time I'd go down there and meet him to go out on the road, he'd come walking out of the house with 3 or 4 brand new fan belts under his arm. So he'd have plenty of fan belts to carry on the road. But Grandpa was kind of a shade tree mechanic, and he'd crawl underneath that thing and change those fan belts himself, and he didn't want any of us helping him.
Is that right?
I'll do it. And he'd get under there and he'd bust his knuckles with them old crescent wrenches and carry on. But anyway, he got to where he could change one in about 15 or 20 minutes.
Wow.
And we came in the Opry one night. We'd been out on the road. We got back just time to do the Opry, and we walked in there, and Harold Weekly, the staff drummer at the time on the Opry band, he always wanted to hear the latest Grandpa story, So he came over where we standing on the side of the stage, and he said, Grandpa, he said, hear you've been breaking a lot of fan belts lately. And Grandpa said, yes. He said, I'm getting so good at changing them now, I can change them with the engine running. We one time with White River, we did what a lot of groups have happened to them through the years. At least once, we left somebody behind. We had a rule on our bus that if we stopped at a truck stop, especially in the middle of the night, and the driver got out to fuel up, if somebody else got off the bus and the driver didn't see him, they were supposed to take the road atlas and lay it on the driver's seat. So when the driver got back in, he'd see that atlas laying there, and then he had to wait on somebody to come back.
Yeah.
Well, I got out and fueled up. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning. We were at Katy, Texas, and we were going to Houston, and we were meeting a friend of ours over there for breakfast at Cracker Barrel. So I was in a hurry to get it full of fuel. I thought everybody was in the bunk asleep, and I got back on. I checked. The road atlas was down in the floorboard there where we kept it. It wasn't on the seat, so I just took off. And there was a McDonald's sitting right next to the truck stop. Well, what I didn't know was our drummer had gotten off to get a cup of coffee at McDonald's, and he forgot to put the atlas in the seat. So I get over there 100 miles later. I get over there at this Cracker Barrel, and it was daylight by that time. And I went back in the back, started waking everybody up. Get up, it's time to eat breakfast. I reached up there in that top bunk, and no JR. He wasn't there, and I knew exactly where he was. I thought, oh, he forgot. So the guy that we were meeting there for breakfast, him and Bruce got in his car, and they drove over there and got him. We all went back to bed while they ran over there 100 miles and got JR. But we left him over there. And Bruce said when they pulled in there, he was 19 or 20 years old. And he was a newlywed, and he just had his first baby. And his baby was like 6 or 8 weeks old. And he got out of the bus to get him a cup of coffee, but he only had about $1 on him, just enough to get a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And so we'd run off and left him. He didn't have any money to get anything to eat with.
Oh, man.
But by the time Bruce got over there to pick him up, those girls felt sorry for him that worked in there, and they had him all kinds of food, and they gave him all kinds of those little toys they give kids in those little dinners.
Yeah.
They loaded him up, Happy Meal. They loaded him up with Happy Meal toys for his new baby. And he's just sitting there grinning. Bruce said he walked in. JR said, I knew y'all would come back and get me.
Yeah. You know what? We did that same thing.
Yeah.
Remember when Robbie had his scuba diving accident?
Oh, yeah.
Back in 88. Well, Kent was traveling with us, singing Robbie's part. And then we had a keyboard player for Little Rock that played keyboards.
Yeah.
And I think we were in Oklahoma somewhere. We were driving back to Little Rock, and we stopped in Fort Smith at a truck stop. Fort Smith at a truck stop. And the keyboard player got off, didn't tell anybody. We were getting fuel. We got back in, took off, drove all the way to Little Rock. Stopped to get everybody up, and he wasn't there, just like the same thing. And that was 3 hours away.
It happens about every group at some time.
That was 3 hours away, man.
Oh, man.
And that, of course, that was before we had cell phones.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if that happened today, you could just call if you had your cell phone with you, or if you knew the phone number, you could call a cell phone. Hey, you forgot me, and they could turn around and go get you. But there wasn't no way to get a hold of anybody back then.
Yeah.
But
there's a lot of things that happen on the road.
Funny stories, I'm telling you. We could write a book, couldn't we, Gene?
Oh yeah, we could. We could.
Man,
I'm actually writing a book now, but it's not about that.
Oh, really?
Well, I've been writing a blog since 2011.
Yeah.
I don't write it every month, just whenever I feel like it. And I just write about just whatever I'm feeling and whatever I'm thinking at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm putting all those blogs that I've got so far together in a book.
That's cool.
And something I kind of wanted to do, so I'm working on that right now.
That's awesome, man.
Well, man, thanks for having me on here. I appreciate it.
Thank you for doing it. This has been fun.
Yeah,
and, I can't wait to get it. Can't wait to get it on Facebook and have everybody check you out, man.
Well, thanks for what you're doing here, and I've always cherished our relationship personally and with Mid-South, and it's a lot of great memories.
Yeah, there never was any competition between us two. I mean, we had our own identity, our own style, and it worked well together. And we just always had fun when we were with you guys. And just
that's right.
I miss those days. I really do.
I do too. Yeah.
But thanks a lot, Gene.
All right, man.
Good to see you again. You're looking good for a 72-year-old man.
Well, thank you. You're looking good too. You'll look better when you get a haircut someday.
I've always said.
I'm just kidding.
Long hair. Yeah.
I love it. I think you need to bring the mullet back.
I don't know about that, but they are coming back, though.
I know. I've noticed that.
Back. Yeah. Back in the 90s when I had mine, I always thought, people said, when in the 2000s when I finally cut my hair a little shorter, they'd see pictures of me with the mullet. And they go, "Oh, look at the mullet!" And it'll come back someday. It'll come back, and it did.
Yeah.
But thanks, Gene. So
all right, man. Thank you.
I really appreciate you, and
appreciate you.
Stay safe and stay well. Don't get that virus.
Oh, you too. Same to you.
All right.
See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.